Hello and welcome to The Learning Post, a podcast dedicated to sharing insights from the UK Aid Match and the UK Aid Direct Funds. My name is Lorna and I'm the Senior Performance Manager for UK Aid Match, and I'm your host for this episode. In this episode, we speak to Lydia Baffour Awuah, Senior Programme Manager for Opportunity International. This is an organisation working to end global poverty by providing people living in poverty with access to loans, financial training and savings, so that they can actually work their way out of poverty and build sustainable livelihoods. I've invited Lydia to talk to us today about the organisation's recently ended Roots to Change project, implemented in Ghana and the Democratic Republic of Congo as part of UK Aid Match. Particularly want to look at how it was able to break down cultural and structural gender barriers in its target communities. Just to start off, could you give the listeners a quick overview of the Roots to Change project and what it was trying to achieve?
Thanks so much, Lorna, for having me. So the Root of Change program has spent the last 3 years helping thousands of rural women farmers and entrepreneurs in Ghana to improve their productivity, build assets, and increase their household income. Smallholder farmers play a crucial role in the economy of Ghana and in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yet, without resources and training, many of these smallholder farmers operate at 40% or less of their capacity. Female farmers in particular are disadvantaged due to cultural and social and economic barriers that stop them from growing sustainable livelihood. And this is where this program comes in partnership with the UK government and Opportunity International's local partners in Ghana, that is Opportunity International Savings and Loans Limited and Sinapiaba Savings and Loans Limited in Ghana. And in DRC, we have a Vision Fund that we are working with. We work with these partners to set out to support these rural farmers and the community to help break down the barriers for women financial inclusion.
The project was really successful. Over 15,000 women benefited against an initial target of 12,000. Central to that success, I think, was really breaking down the cultural and structural gender barriers. Can you explain to the listeners how you went about doing that?
Changes have been quite phenomenal. And we realized that before we can actually break down some of these social cultural barriers, it was really important for us as an institution to look home. As they say, charity begins at home. So the first thing that we try to do is to look at each of our downstream partners. So we work with external gender consultants, and they try to review the policies and procedures of each of our downstream partners that I've mentioned, reviewing their policy, their HR policy, their credit policy, just to understand the state of their gender inclusivity at a point in time, and also help us to map them up on the gender mainstream spectrum. So we wanted to see whether they were either gender, the way they designed their programs and processes, whether it was gender aware or whether they were gender blind or whether it's gender transformative. So the findings from this assessment really help us to develop institution-specific actions plan to just support each of the institution. And as I said, the assessment explored 2 key dimensions for each institution. We look at their institutional change management, how to enhance their recruitment process, their performance, and also to learn more about whether they can achieve more gender-aware and equitable workplace. So that was one aspect that we did. And also at the client level, we wanted to see how they were working with women and rural women in particular to see if we can make that business case for growing their women portfolio and see how best they can actually optimize the work that they are doing with women in terms of their credit decisions, how they market their program to women, their outreach and design product for them. And following on from that, we designed a gender awareness training workshop, starting again from the board level up to the field management level. All these people were taken through the gender training just to see how that impacts upon the work that they were doing with women. And once that aspect was done, then we came back then to the community level. Most often we do work with women, but we realize that we cannot really address the issue of gender without also bringing on board the men. So we designed this gender awareness training to work with the community leaders, those people who hold power in the community, the chief, the group leaders, as well as also with their spouses and other male family members in the community, for them to really understand the need for us to work with the women as well. And so far, I think that particular aspect of the program really help us to achieve the target that we set for ourselves.
Thank you, Lydia. I think that was a really comprehensive answer. For me, I think the work that you did with your downstream partners was really especially interesting. It's really unique, something I haven't seen on Match before. And I think it's something, hopefully, that other grant holders will be interested in learning more about. Did you encounter any particular challenges for trying to break through these barriers?
Yes, as you know, gender issue is quite sensitive, especially in the communities and the areas that you were working with. So I remember even at the institutional level, when we started, people have their own preconceived ideas about what gender is and what gender is not. So we have to actually spend a lot of time at the institutional level to help give each of our staff the language that they need, the common language that they need. For example, common things like what is the difference between gender, what is the difference between sex, so they can really be able to distinguish between this. What is the difference between equality versus equity? So this really, really was very useful, because when we started, it looked like it was more of a foreign concept that we were trying to introduce at the institutional level. But as we break it down and then we try to relate it to how that is more applicable to the work that we are doing and the mission that each of the organizations has set for themselves, particularly in terms of working with our women clients, it was really, really useful as well. So I think one of the key lessons that we learned from this program was that you have to create that safe space right from the beginning, especially at the institutional level, for people to voice out their own preconceived ideas about what they think gender is, to learn so they can try and learn the new things. And the approach that we use really helped it to become more successful. Again, we knew that we needed gender champions within the institutional levels as well, people who have really gone through the training and understand, so they can help it break it down for other staff and colleagues who were not really on board with it. In terms also at the community level, it was really quite interesting, because especially when we know that when it comes to the gender training for the spouses, for the husbands, for the men and the community leaders, I think when we were going, we're not so sure whether even the spouses will attend it, because they think, why is it that we are only working with the women and not working with the men? But one thing that we made clear from the onset was the fact that this was actually a project for women, but we also will not forget about the men. So we kind of adapted that two-pronged approach, that some of the program activities were for both men and women, especially the gender training, the other financial literacy training that we were organizing. But we did also have women-specific program, because the whole idea was to help bring the work of the women that were almost often at the background. They were not having access to financial service. So we wanted to bring their work at the forefront, so that people will see that their work is also worth in terms of us bringing them into the financial landscape. And one story that I actually remember happened in one of the communities we're working with in Ghana. One of the spouses was not so happy, does not understand why we are always meeting with the wife. But when we invited the spouse to the gender sensitization training, he said, he did not have enough time. But can you believe that when this man came, after going through the training process, we wanted to do just one session with them and move to the next community. Almost every time he hear us doing it in a different community, this man will show up. He's now one of our gender advocates in the community as well. So it is really, really important, again, to really look at the whole ecosystem. These are norms and cultures that has been there for generation and generations. So to be able to penetrate through it, you really need the power holders to engage with it and to be on board, to be able to break these barriers down.
Thank you, Lydia. What do you think are the biggest successes of the project?
There were a number of successes. The first and foremost, when we are doing programs like this, it is for the client, it's for the target beneficiaries. But we have to first and foremost look in-house and see that we are walking the talk. So it was really important from us from the beginning to get on board the senior managers, board of directors, engage with the programs. The rest of the implementation was much easier. They were really willing to not just do business as usual, but go beyond their everyday things to really look at not just counting on the number of women they are serving, but actually doing deep dive to see how they can break some of these social cultural norms to be able to work with the women and men so they can create that harmonious household for the people that they are working in. The second thing that also contributed to the success of the program, as I've said, is the gender awareness training, looking at the whole ecosystem. It's really important to engage with the men and the boys on the gender issue because that really helps us to be able to counter any potential backlash that we will have encountered. The third thing also was designing for the women. When we design programs for men, it is so difficult for us to retrofit it for women. However, if you try and design with women in mind, some of the barriers that we encountered, they were useful for people with disability, for the youth and other things. So I would say these three aspects actually help us to be very successful. Last thing I would say is that also being aware of the culture sensitivity in the areas that we were working with. When we were doing the gender training programs, we tried to use local gender experts in the community. In Northern Ghana, where we have most of the clients being Muslims, we try to engage with a gender consultant who is also a Muslim, so she can actually relate some of the examples and the case studies that she's using the Quran and some of the cultural stories that they've heard in the community. That actually helped them to really understand and engage with the discussions that were going on. So, and taking advantage and using expertise within the local community was really helpful to help drive the success of this program.
Thanks very much for your time today, Lydia.
Thanks so much, Lorna, for having us. It's great sharing our learnings with you all.
To find out more about Opportunity International's work, please head over to their website at www.opportunity.org.uk. Also, don't forget to subscribe to The Learning Post so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you haven't already, please do go back and listen to all our previous episodes. Thanks very much for listening.